What up, you fluffy bastards? My name is Liquid Blitz, and welcome to 10 tips to help you get ahead. In this video, I'm going to cover some pretty random and obscure tips that you may not know about. Hardcore players and, Battlefield enthusiasts will probably already know most of the stuff on this list, but to be honest, most players aren't hardcore Battlefield enthusiasts. So hopefully there is something in this video for everyone to learn something new. That's the goal, anyway. If not, and you already know all 10 things, then aren't you just badass and awesome? To be honest, I have to admit, even I didn't know a couple of the things on this list until I did the research for this video. Probably out of ignorance. I mean, I'm crap. Let's start with the most commonly known tip. Don't judge the entire list by this first one. This is the most commonly known. Support LMGs, support weapons, get more accurate the longer you fire. All weapons in the game have a spread value, which is the amount of sort of inaccuracy calculated for each shot. Normally this spread value gets worse the longer you shoot consecutively, but with support light machine guns, the spread value actually decreases. The spread values are actually negative, so the spread gets better after each shot. So in other words, as long as you aren't miles and miles away from your enemy, and you shouldn't be, then you want to hold that trigger down and fire fully automatic to get more and more accurate. And then the most common problem that arises then is if you're firing fully automatic, the recoil can just start to get out of hand. If you're using a weapon with a bipod, simply slap that bipod down. That pretty much cancels out 95% of all your recoil anyway. With a bipod down and firing fully automatic, you will essentially be firing a laser cannon. Anyway, that tip was the most common. You probably already knew that. So let's move on to the juicier, more random, sort of weird tips. Tip number 2, you can change, you probably already know this, but a lot of people, that at least the gameplay that I've seen, haven't actually done it. You can change your crosshair colour. Now let me explain why I think you should actually change it from the default white. It's my opinion that the default white colour of the crosshair really doesn't contrast well with many of the environments and many of the different maps. For example, on bright open maps, where there's lots of clear sky, the sun is shining bright, etc, etc. On many maps, there are even loads of white buildings. White is a very when you think about it, white is actually a very useless colour for a crosshair. There's so many things that are bright and white. A decent contrast between your crosshair and your surroundings is most important when using sort of trench weapons and shotguns, because basically that's when you hip fire most, and you need the crosshairs, because if you're aiming down sight, the crosshairs don't exist. Personally, I never took much notice of this setting. I've seen it, but I didn't twig it for some reason. I just didn't bother with it. Maybe I'm just ignorant. I find that, as you will see in the remainder of the gameplay for this video from this point on, I found that a deep pink colour is the single best contrast colour against all environments. Because think about it, you can have a bright red, orange, blue, a bright green might work well, but then you've got green grass. I found that no map in Battlefield 1 has pink anywhere, so it contrasts against the most things, if you see what I mean. And you'll see from the gameplay on the screen right now, it's so much clearer and easy to see than a white crosshair. Now, yeah, you might complain that this is it sort of takes you out of the realism, and I agree. This is a very Call of Duty tip, but it's just there to help you, to be honest. I recommend you at least change it to give it a go, and if you don't like it, just put it back to white. No harm done. Now on to tip number 3, and this is along the same lines. We're changing another colour. You can change the hit indicator colour. You know when you hit a target, you hit a person. You can change the colour separately for hits, headshots, and kills. This really is a fantastic setting that I can't believe I haven't changed before this video. Once again, research for this video led me to change this. You really should be changing this setting, especially the headshot setting, which by default is white, which is the same as the regular hit colour. Come on, if you get a headshot, you want that bad boy to stand out, even if it's only for your own satisfaction. I've personally kept regular hits white because they're just regular hits, but then I've set headshots to sort of a medium light blue, just so it stands out, and I love seeing that blue because it means I've got a lovely, delicious headshot. And kills, I've set it to a slightly brighter red than default, just because I want to know immediately that I've got a kill. I don't know what difference it makes that the red is slightly brighter, but it looks good. I will add on to the end of that, if you do change your headshot colour, it's actually helpful, because if you see that you get a headshot and they don't die, which happens a lot, I'm telling you right now, it happens more than you think it does, you know that you've done quite a lot of damage already, so it'll make you more sort of inclined to whip out your pistol and finish them off, etc, etc. It just helps you know how much damage you've done. Because otherwise, with the default white, you don't know if you've done a headshot, so you don't know that you've done more than normal damage. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? Anyway, let's move away from colours. Tip number 4, this is for sort of Conquest players, really. In Conquest, respawning after you die, respawning is what gives the enemy team a ticket, not dying. Generally, this doesn't matter, but on the sort of rare occasions when the game is coming to an end and it's neck and neck, it's very close, you may not want to respawn because it gives the enemy team another ticket, and really you're just helping the enemy win at that point. Thinking about it, this tip, in Conquest specifically, you should always try and take the medics out first, because if they revive their teammates, that's no tickets for you. So if you can kill an entire squad and leave the medic alive, and then you die, the medic revives them all, you have contributed nothing to your team. So try and take medics out if you can identify them. Kill them medics! Anyway, tip number 5. There is a setting, somewhere in the settings, for showing and displaying stationary weapons, like stationary gun emplacements, on your minimap. You want to change that setting from only showing heavy weapons to showing all weapons. This setting is under the gameplay section of the settings, and by default it's set to only show heavy things like the field gun only. So if you switch it to all, you'll be able to see number 1 machine gun placements, but that's not the big thing. The big thing is it will also show you AA cannons, which don't show by default. And seriously, jumping on an AA cannon can save your team a lot of problems. Jumping on an AA cannon and taking out a plane or two can swing an entire game in your direction. Now, I've just given you that tip, but keep in mind, the way these stationary weapons work is actually changing completely in the coming May update. If you're watching this after May, then hello. But now, after the May update, these like AA cannons, field guns, machine guns, all the placements, they are now indestructible. So they no longer sort of vanish like they do at the moment. So they're indestructible, but they do have a health value, and they become disabled and unusable once they've reached below 50% health. And then they will only become usable again once they're repaired with a repair tool up all the way to 100%. They have to be full health again before you can use them, which is good, I think. Now, the reason I'm saying this, at the time of making this video, I don't yet know if those anti-air cannons will still appear on the minimap once they're disabled. Do you see what I'm saying? Either way, switching the setting to all from heavy will let you simply know when there is a functional AA cannon nearby, and that can only be a good thing. Anyway, let's move on to tip number 6. This one is to do with planes, and it's mainly, to be honest, it's really only to do with PC players. For planes, I advise that you bind pitch down, which is one of the keybinds. You bind pitch down to your spacebar for seriously much easier circling. This is especially useful if you're sort of dogfighting with another plane. As I say, this is really only for PC players, because us PC lackeys, we use a mouse for sort of pitching and rolling, and depending on your sensitivity, at some point you're going to have to sort of drag your mouse back to its default position. And in that moment when you drag it back, you could lose a couple of seconds if you're circling around. Actually, by default, when you're in a plane, the spacebar is bound to you firing your primary weapon, but then so is your left mouse button, which is just better. So scrap that and bind your spacebar to pitch down instead, and that moves you. It's called pitch down, but it makes your plane go up, if you see what I mean. So if you're sideways and you press that, you're just going to go in circles, and that's what you need for dogfighting. So set your spacebar to pitch down, and you barely have to move your mouse at all. Win! Now let's move on to tip number 7. This is actually more of a collection of sort of helpful facts, really, to do with the elite classes. I've just got a little fact or two for each type of elite, so let's start with the sentry. Did you know the sentry is only armoured from the front? You can do a lot more damage from behind, or if you're playing the sentry, make sure you keep your back to sort of teammates or like a wall. Just be mindful of what's behind you, otherwise you are going to end up getting sizzled like a sausage. The next little fact is to do with a flamer, and this is just nice to clarify once and for all, 100% fact, it's just nice to clarify. Only the flamer is immune to gas, and fire, of course. The other elites are not immune to gas. So the other elites take gas damage, and that's actually a great way to sort of hurt them or block their advance. If you know a sentry is coming at you sort of through a doorway, throw a gas down, and he can't walk through that without dying, to be honest. Anyway, the next little sub-tip is about the tank hunter. You probably already know this, but the tank hunter's main weapon, the tank Gewehr, something, it one-shot kills infantry. You've got to be very accurate. It's like the Martini Henry. You've got to be accurate as balls. But it's a one-shot kill to infantry. And it does seriously fucking huge damage to planes. In fact, I would say it's possibly the best weapon in the game to use against a plane. That's how good it is. I was using it yesterday, and I was doing sort of 25 to 30 damage against bombers per shot. And you get like, I don't know, 20 shots, I think, total. And you can resupply them. And apparently, this tactic is most effective when you aim specifically for the engine. So, there you go. It's called Tank Hunter. It should be called fucking Plane Hunter, seriously. Anyway, moving on to tip number 8, we're back to the AA cannon again. Since the May update, once again, the AA cannon can shoot further vertically than it can horizontally. Now this is actually a really big change. They keep changing anti-air stuff. Well, in the most recent May 2017 update, they changed the mechanics of how the distance works. Before, the AA cannon had the same range in all directions, no matter where you aimed, up, sideways, all around, it was the same. So if you imagine that range of fire, or like around the AA cannon as like a sphere, like a bubble, a range bubble. Well, now it shoots 450 meters vertically and only 300 meters horizontally. So anyway, if you imagine this bubble that I just mentioned, for the new system, it's taller than it is wide. So it's more like a it's more like a butt plug shape, a big fat butt plug shape, like kind of like that. Yeah. Moving on. Anyway, moving on to tip number 9. You can pick up enemy tripwire bombs if you're playing the scout class. So if you come across an enemy tripwire bomb as a sniper, as a scout, you can disarm it and pick it up. I did not know that before making this video. I just did. It was one of the things that was not in my knowledge base. And as you're probably seeing right now, I'll put the gameplay of it on the screen at the moment. As you can see, I tested it myself with a friend, and I tested it both with and without the scout class, and it turns out only the scouts can pick it up. So if you're playing scout, and with this tip, there's sort of no need to die needlessly. And keep in mind that if you pick up an enemy tripwire bomb, they have no way of knowing you've picked it up, which is awesome. Whereas if you blow it up, they clearly know something is up. They know some shit is going down if there's an explosion right behind them. So it's actually a very sneaky way of getting close to enemy snipers, picking up the tripwire bomb, running up and shivving them. Counter-sniping, sneaking for the win! I will say, I tested it as you've seen, but what I didn't test was if you have a tripwire bomb equipped as one of your gadgets, which I didn't during the test. I should have thought of it when I did the test, but I didn't. If you have that and you use your tripwire bomb elsewhere, what I didn't test was if you then pick up an enemy tripwire bomb, if it restocks your tripwire. Do you see what I'm saying? I didn't test that. So if one of you can go out of your way to test if it restocks your own tripwire, that would be cool. And just leave it in the comments below. Do my work for me! Anyway, moving on to tip number 10. Okay, I admit there wasn't a tip number 10. Happy now? I couldn't just call the video 9 tips, because 9, that just sounds weird. That's like watching a top 10 video with no number 1. Okay, you know what? Let's just think of a 10th tip right now, off the top of my head. Otherwise, I feel like I've conned you out of a tip. Oh, you know what? Yes, sorry. I had a tip that I rejected for this video because it wasn't good enough. But screw it, I'm missing a tip, so I'm including it anyway. It's actually 2 tips to do with suppression. The suppression effect, did you know? Doesn't really matter if you did, to be honest. But the suppression effect only works at sort of medium range and beyond. There is 0 suppression at close range, for good reason. I mean, if 2 people are point blank range shooting each other, they can't be getting all suppressed, because that would just be shit. Also, you know what? Since one of the recent updates, it might have been the winter update, but I'm not sure. Suppression now halts your resupply timer for getting a new grenade. But it only halts the timer if you're not near an ammo crate. If you are near an ammo crate, it simply slows down the timer, I believe, to like a 2/3 of its usual speed, I think, something like that. So whether you are or are not near an ammo crate, it either halts or slows down your resupply timer. That's a good tip, right? That's worth being in the list, right? So there you go, that's it. That's my 10th official tip. It's shit, but it is nonetheless a tip. Do you want more grenades? Don't get suppressed. What a fucking tip. And also, I will say in the May update, again the May update, that they are adding, this is an extra little tidbit. In the dogfighter version of the fighter plane, the fast small plane, they are adding incendiary ammo to the dogfighter, which is going to do extra damage to planes. So soon there's going to be a lot of fighter planes flying around. So that the time is nigh for binding pitch down to your spacebar for PC, because there's going to be more dogfighters than ever before. Anyway, that's it. Like this video if you liked it. Like this video if you didn't like it. And join me in my next video. The next video will be another part of Outlast, because The horror of that game is starting to get to me, and I want to finish it.